In May of 1854, the Lamb family gathered around the dinner table in their small cabin. They had settled in Clackamas in the new Oregon Territory after the incredibly difficult journey on the Oregon Trail. Nathaniel Lamb sat at the head of the table, surrounded by his children. His wife, Charity, stepped outside the cabin and retrieved an axe from a woodpile. As the story goes, she came back inside holding her new baby in one arm and the axe in the other. Charity swung it into the back of Nathaniel's head twice. He lived for almost a week before dying from his injuries. Charity was taken into custody and would be charged with first-degree murder.
She was the first woman ever in the Oregon Territory charged with murder and would be the first woman tried for murder.
First-degree murder carried a penalty of death. Newspapers had a field day with the spectacle. Words like monster and cold-blooded splashed across the front pages.
Obviously, this was fodder for today would have been the tabloids. And back then, a lot of the newspapers were very tabloidy. And so this was a story you can imagine that went through the Oregon Territory, a buzz.
Charity's murder trial would last for 6 days. The judge, the prosecutor, and jurors were all men. Women had virtually no rights during this time. They wouldn't be allowed to vote in Oregon for another 60 years.
You were often, property, a little more than property.
For the prosecutor, the case was open and shut. Charity had murdered her husband. Her children even testified to it. The prosecutor argued intent, presenting a singular motive to the court. Charity had been having an affair with another man, he said, and wanted Nathaniel out of the picture.
As the story evolves over time, why did she do this? Well, some thought perhaps because a man had been in town recently, living nearby from California, and there was talk that he had developed a romantic interest in both Charity and Marianne, her 19-year-old daughter, and that both were interested in him romantically as well.
Charity's attorneys argued that Nathaniel was horribly abusive and Charity feared for her life.
Nathaniel was very abusive, threw a hammer at her, abusive language to her, threatened her frequently, threatened to shoot her, treated her like a servant as opposed to a wife.
But there were no larger societal conversations of domestic violence at the time, and few legal protections for women. So Charity's attorneys tried another strategy. They argued she was deranged and didn't comprehend the severity of her actions, therefore could not be held responsible. The law acknowledged insanity as a complete defense to crimes of intent.
They argued that, again, that she didn't have enough mental capabilities to plan this. It was in a heat of passion, as opposed to premeditated.
In the end, the jury returned a guilty verdict, but the judge spared Charity from the punishment of death and instead sentenced her to life in prison.
Charity, as a woman, was assigned the laundry duty. She did the laundry for the other inmates. She did the laundry for the warden's family, was her duty. And she was in prison there for 8 years.
She was eventually placed in a mental asylum, never taking full responsibility for murdering her husband.
Never really apologized, and you could tell as time went on that she may have been losing touch with reality, but sometimes denied it, sometimes admitted it, but never really apologized for it.
Charity Lamb, nicknamed Oregon's first convicted murderess, lived in the asylum for 15 years until her death in 1879. She was roughly 65 years old.